Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today, I have a really special guest. I have Omar, who is on the CRM team at Monday.com, and he is in charge of leads and sequences within the CRM. So, Omar, I'd love to hear a little bit about yourself and what you do at Monday.
Hi, so I'm Omar. I work at Monday.com. I'm a software engineer team lead here in the CRM product. My team, main responsibility is the lead aspect of the product. The team is divided into different teams according to the user journey in the system. So my team is the top of the funnel, lead management, lead capturing, outreach. Our main features are sequences, which we'll be talking about very soon. And we also have 2 AI agents we're releasing, one for capturing leads and the other for qualification and outreach to leads. It makes phone calls to the leads, and down the line it will send emails and LinkedIn emails and whichever outreach channels you prefer.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for joining us. So since you mentioned sequences, can you tell us what sequences is within the CRM?
Definitely. So sequences is the main feature I've been working on for the past 2 years, I think. It is a system that gives the user the ability to create a smart, customized, and complex lead outreach and management workflow, which can run autonomously or with user intervention along the line, whichever option the user prefers, on every new lead created in the system. As the lead count and rate increases, sequences is a system that helps the sales rep to save countless hours of manual work, of actually typing in emails and reaching out to leads and creating tasks for themselves to contact them and attempt to contact them in order to qualify them. And so sequences allow the company to grow and scale.
Grow and scale. That makes sense. Okay. So sequences was built for this initial stage of when a lead comes in to basically help send out automated emails and to help the sales rep at the beginning stage, I'm guessing, until they close the deal, right?
Exactly, yeah. So sequences' main goal is to engage with the lead, outreach to them, and qualify them, and pass them along the line, along the funnel, to the account managers, account executives, to close the deal, to pass actually the money from the lead to the company, to qualify them and make them a customer as opposed to a potential lead.
What are some use cases that people have been using sequences for, like specific use cases? We're going to show a quick demo in a couple of minutes, but I'd love if you could just give us some ideas of how specific companies are using sequences.
Yeah, definitely. So top use case of sequences is lead management and qualification, as I mentioned before. Imagine you have an event for potential customers, and suddenly in an instant you have an influx of hot leads that show direct interest in your product or service that the company provides. With a single sequences, you can engage all of them all at once with some introduction email and follow-ups and schedule calls and handle what happens when they reply or doesn't reply and follow up with those that didn't, etc. Another cool example is for the cold leads. And you can create a very large sequence with many sort of introduction emails about your company, and then you get a new lead from somewhere. It could be from web searches, from form submissions, whichever. Leads that has not shown direct interest in your company, in your product, in your service, and then you send out an introduction email explaining the value you can give them. Most of the leads won't reply to the first email, so you can schedule a second email a week later, a third one, another week later, and so on until the lead finally replies. You can play around with different text and attachments and files in the sequence to find the one that's most engaging. And then you can also learn and improve the other sequences that you might have and to make them engaging from the get-go as opposed to from the 7th email down the line.
Have people been using sequences for after sales? Like, do you see people using that, or they mainly use it pre-sales?
Definitely. Also, sequence is very versatile. It could be used for many use cases. I seen a use case for someone who created sequence as a birthday wishing mailing system, where they have a sequence with mails with 365 days in between each mail, and then each email is like personalized with specialized happy birthday wishes. And when they have a customer, they know the birthday somehow, probably from some folks submission,
right?
And then once the birthday comes, they enroll the lead into the sequence and they automatically get happy birthday wishes from the get-go. And then a year later, they get another one, and a year later, another one. I've seen this flow, I think, for 7 years, but it can go indefinitely.
That's something that's really important. Like when you talk about client retention, just having that touch point, talking to a client and saying that their birthday. Sometimes a lot of clients really like that. And just to be clear, I'm assuming the answer is yes, but this feature is only available on the CRM products, correct? It's not available on work management.
Yeah, only CRM.
Okay, thanks, Omar, for that quick introduction about sequences. And now let's jump into a quick demo to understand how it works. Omar, take it away.
This is the demo CRM workspace I created. And here you can see there are two entry points to sequences. One of them is from the board itself. Here you have the sequences button. And the other one is on the account level. On the left, you have the account level sequences. For this showcase, I just used the board one, which will filter out all the sequences that relate to that specific board. And I've created here two sequences. Let's go see and the Christmas 2025 outreach. In this example, let's envision I'm a company that sells Christmas trees and I created some sort of event. Many people came, saw my trees, and maybe showed interest. Maybe they filled out a form manually or scanned a QR code and the lead was created into my system, into my CRM. And now I build a sequence to handle those leads. What we can see here is the structure of the sequence. I created a sequence where right from the get-go, they get an introduction email. We can see the content I created here. 3 days later, they get...
Before you continue, I just want to point out where it says hi pulse name, that's actually a placeholder that's being pulled from the board. So like that's the person's first name that's being pulled from the board. But just for anyone who's wondering why it says pulse name, that's the reason.
Yeah, definitely. So the entire point of sequences is to have an ability to create personalized outreach system in bulk for all the leads. So each lead will get their own personalized email with the name being injected here from the board itself. So back to the structure, we have the first introduction email. 3 days later, we have another follow-up email. 1 day later, I've added the a call task from my SDR. Just the content here I said, we're attempting to contact them. If they show interest, you can go to 20% discount. And I marked this step as pausing step, which means when this step happens, the sequence will stop. The owner of the lead, the owner of the sequence will get a notification to mark this step as done. In this case, when the SDR calls the lead, actually calls them, they can mark the step as done, and then the sequence will continue on right where it left. So the next step after that will be to mark the lead as potential loss, because if they haven't replied to the first 2 emails and they haven't replied and they haven't answered the call, maybe the potential to become natural lead decreases. And then 1 day later, I'm trying to send the final last chance email to get the lead to be engaged. And that's it on the structure. And we can go and see the rules notification, some global rules about the sequence and how it should operate. And we can see where does the information being pulled from, what is the lead's address, what is the lead phone number, and from which email should the automatic emails from the sequence should be sent. Some sort of time configuration. I don't want emails to be sent on Saturdays and Sundays. It's only to be sent out during work hours, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can select the time zone. You can select what happens when the lead engages with the sequence. In this example, when the lead replies to an email, I want to terminate the run, remove them from the sequence, and change their status to be contacted. I can also do the same with opening of an email, when an email bounces, when the lead clicks on a link inside the email, or when it's an auto-reply, for example, if the lead is out of office, on vacation, or something like that. Then you can see some unsubscribe rules. If the lead unsubscribed from my mailing list, I don't want to contact them again. So this will make sure we're not spamming them. Last but not least is notifications. I can decide if I want to get notifications or don't get notifications on events that happen inside the sequence, and then I can select who gets notifications. In this example, it's a people column inside the board called lead owner. So I don't want the owner of the sequence to get notification, but rather the owner of the lead, because they're the one that actually deal with them, engage with them, and talk with them. So this is my sequence. Currently, it's active. And now if I want to add a new lead to the sequence, I have several options. I can go to the leads board or whichever board I have the sequence configured on and select a lead. Maybe I select 2 leads, and then I have the add to sequence button here. Now we can see all the sequences I have on this board that I have access to. In this example, I can select the Christmas 25 outreach, and I can select from which step I want the lead to start on. I can start from the beginning, this is the default, or I can select whichever other step I want. For example, if I engage with the lead prior and I know they show intent, I might not need the introduction email. I can go to the maybe follow-up or the last outreach or any of the task and reminders, and it's up to me, up to the SDR, up to the user to decide. In this case, I'll add both leads to the beginning.
So here you're manually adding these leads to the sequence. Can it also be automated, that they're automatically added to the sequence?
Definitely. We can go to the automate section and then look for, this can change a bit. I'm sorry. I'll just look for to create and then look for sequences. And you have the sequences app. Here you have many options. I think like 50 options of how to add lead automatically to the sequence, remove from the sequence, listen to events that might happen to the sequence, like email opens, email clicked. In this case, we can select when item is created, for example, enroll it to the sequence, and then I can select whichever sequence I want that I have on the board. In this case, the Christmas 2025 outreach. So now I can either add a new item to the board, which will automatically enroll the lead to the sequence, or I can select it with the button I showed you. A cool thing to show here is we have a sequence dedicated column on the board that shows for each lead if they are on a sequence or not. In this case, I added both of these leads to my sequence, and I can see they are currently in the Christmas 2025 outreach. If I want to, I can remove one of them or both of them from the sequence directly from the column. Are you sure you want to terminate the active one? Yes. And then it's removed. It's currently not in the sequence.
When they're done with the sequence, will that automatically disappear?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's very cool.
Yeah. I can also go to the sequence itself and then look at what happened with it, what leads ran through it in the enrollment tab over here. I can see there are currently 2 leads enrolled to the sequence. One of them was stopped manually by me a second ago, and the other one is currently running. And I can see here when I over what should happen. So the first step is the introduction email, which is coming tomorrow. Currently it's marked as tomorrow because, as we seen before in the roles notification sections, I mentioned that mails shouldn't be sent out on Sundays. As this is now Sunday when we're filming this video, the mail will be sent out tomorrow on Monday to 19 p.m. This is nice. What else should I show you?
Are there any metrics for these sequences, like who got the email or who opened them? What kind of metrics do you have?
So currently we have metrics on the sequence level itself. As you can see here in the main table, you can see how many steps each sequence has, what is the maximum duration of the sequence, how many active contacts or leads are currently on the sequence. Currently we have only 1 because we enrolled 2 and removed 1 of them. How many total historically ran through the sequence, total 2. And then we have the open rate, reply rate, and click-through rate. Currently, they're all at 0 because the mail wasn't even sent. It will be sent tomorrow. So when tomorrow comes, the metrics will be updated as the leads engage with the mails they receive.
I know it's not something that you have yet, but are there any plans in the roadmap to add dashboards for this?
Yeah, so we want to add, currently it's, as I said, is a sequence level, but we want to add inside of a specific sequence another data tab that will show you for step what is the open rate, reply rate, and click-through rate for each of the emails, each of the steps, and you will be able to see which leads are currently in which step. You will be able to remove leads from specific steps, add to specific steps, and get all the information right here inside the screen.
So just to summarize, what we've seen here is that you can create a sequence. In this example, it's a company that sells Christmas trees, and they created an email sequence to send out to people that are coming to buy the Christmas trees. There's I don't remember if it was 4 or 5 emails that go out, and there's a certain delay within each emails. And as the people come into the CRM, they can automatically be added to the sequence, or they can manually be added. And we saw some of those features. Anything else on a high-level overview about sequences?
So sequences is integrated in the entire Monday ecosystem. You can see it from the automation that I've shown you before. And we also have integration with the Workflow Builder. I've just created some examples here for integration of sequences into Workflow Builder. In this example, I added some sequence-related steps into a specific workflow I created. In this case, I have a trigger here when the lead is being enrolled into sequence. Then I want to fetch all the data of the item and see if the owner column is empty. In this case, I want to see if someone is owning this lead. In case the column is not empty, which means there's an owner, I want to send notification to the owner of the lead that, hi, just to get your attention, one of your leads was being added to a sequence. But in case there are no owner to the lead, I want to remove them from the sequence. I don't want to deal with leads that are like floating around. They don't have an owner. And I want to then assign someone with a specific block we have in the CRM, round robin assignment, assign some owner from a specific team to that lead, notify that new owner, wait a day, and then enroll them back into the sequence. So this is one example. Another example I can show you is how to deal with leads when they engage with a sequence. In this case, someone is in the sequence, emails are being sent, and then I added trigger to when the sequence email link is clicked. In this case, it means the user actually opened the email and engaged with the link. So I want to get the lead information. I want to remove them from the sequence because they got their attention. And then I want to look. If the status is attempted to contact, we've attempted to contact them before. If it's yes, then I should just notify the SDR to make a call now because this is the right time. They show intent. They're familiar with the emails and the product or service you're trying to sell. If we haven't tried to attempt contact before, I want to change their status to contact and then maybe add them to another sequence of high intent outreach. Maybe it's more dedicated sequence to those that currently showed intent for the product, for the service. These are the two examples I've created. We can create whichever workflow fits the use case of the client. We have, I think, around 20 workflow builder blocks made specific to sequences. I've seen some insane complex workflows with sequences integrated into them. It just connects sequences to the entire ecosystem and the entire workflow of the client.
What about if someone responds to an email? Can you set that up as a trigger to pull them out of the sequence?
Yeah, let's do it here. So I'll just edit the workflow. If I go to change trigger, just a second, the recording hides the screen. Let's see, nothing. We have when you reply to sequence email. So I can choose this instead and just set everything up as before.
Okay. So basically what we're saying here is that you can set up this sequence and when someone replies to you, you don't need to worry that they're going to still be in this sequence, but they're going to be kicked out of it. So that way they're not getting these emails anymore. Can you then add them back into the sequence?
Yeah, you can do basically whatever you want. If this trigger would have been when a new reply to a sequence email received, then you can, like I'm doing here, remove them from the sequence and add them to another sequence. If I want to wait a week and then do something, you can remove them and add them back instantly. You can do whatever you want, whatever the use case that fits your specific needs.
Great. Okay. Thank you. This was really helpful. Anything else that someone needs to know who's setting up sequences for the first time? Any other tips that they should know or anything like behind the hood that, that you could share with us?
I think the most common issue people might encounter is the configuration of the timing. So pay attention to that because I've seen issues where users expect emails to be sent out and nothing is being sent. And then we just go to the setting and see that they configured it not to send out on Sunday and the email was supposed to be sent out on Sunday, or the time frames. You can even select every day and every time if you prefer, but that's up to you to decide what are the time frame you actually want. I think this is the thing I would pay most attention to when creating the sequence.
And can you go back to the email for a second? If you go back to steps.
Yeah. So the question again?
Yeah. So is there a rich text editor for the email? Like I can design the email however I want.
Yeah, you can design it however you want. As you can see here, we have like the bold option, underline, italic, whatever you want. You can drag and drop images into the email itself. It automatically pulls in the signature that you configured in money.com. In this case, it's my signature. You can even remove it if you want. You can add an unsubscribe link if you want. You can have these options for the rich text editor. You can add dynamic variables directly from the board. For example, the name of the lead, maybe the status, the company, the title, whichever you want. You can add images directly here. You can decide if you want to track activities on that email. For example, opens, link clicks, replies using this checkbox. And you can decide if this email should be a reply to the previous email you sent. For example, if I click on email thread in here, then this email would be sent out as a reply to this first email. You can have either options as a standalone or as a threaded conversation.
I know that you mentioned earlier that you can create a task on some level. Does that task appear anywhere or where does it show up?
So this task would appear in the timeline of the item. Maybe we can create like a very quick one here. Let's do 2 of them so we can show the ability of the mark is done option. And make sure that we are on every day and every time. And we have the sequence activate. So let's go back to our board and select those leads, task demo. And then we can see that the leads were actually added to the sequence. If I go to the timeline, the images and activities, I can now see that I have the task that I configured in the sequences. As you've seen before, I hope you noticed I marked this task as a mark is done task, which means once a sequence performs this action, it will pause and wait for the user to mark this task as done. In this case, I can see the mark is done option here, and I can see an indication that action is required. I can also see it from the sequence itself. When I go to enrollments, I can see there's action required on both of the leads. And when I hover, I can see, okay, a general task was created, a reminder was sent at 2:32 p.m. I can either go to the task directly back to the item and the images and activities, or mark the task as done from here. Let's mark it as done. And now the sequence continues to run. If I go back to that lead,
then you're not going to see it in the emails and activities.
Yeah. So now I can see the second option, the second task, the call task, which resumed running after I completed the first one.
Right. So, I mean, I think this is great because a lot of times people need some kind of reminders, to go do the task. Is there any central place where you can see all these tasks, or you would need to come into sequences? Like there's no task board that these go to, right? They just show up in emails and activities or the sequences?
Yeah, currently they show up in emails activities and inside the sequences. Some users use the CRM activities board, which I just removed it for this example, and have an automation that for every activity created on the timeline in a specific board, in this case, the leads board, create an activity inside the activities board. And then you can see everything in a centralized location. It takes into consideration both activities created from sequences and from other sources like manual tasks, something from the API maybe, everything in one central place.
Okay, so then you can have like one task list. It'll show you all your activities, but you also have one task list of what you need to do in terms of like following up with users or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. This was really helpful. So thank you for sharing this with me. One last question before we end. Are there any things coming up in your plan for this product that you can share with us?
Currently, we're a bit focused on the AI agents. So Sequences was a bit sidetracked, but in Sequences, we have very big features coming up. We have the Analytics V2, which we talked about a bit earlier, showing analytics on the specific sequence step level. We have the option to create shareable versus private sequences, the option to have a dynamic sender. In this case, I showed you need to configure the email from which the account from which the emails will be sent out. In this case, it's my work email, but we want to give you the option to not have it defined, but have it dynamically injected based on whichever triggers, for example, based on the owner of the lead. In this case, I might own one lead and you might own the other. We want to use the same sequence, but with different sender accounts. So the sequence will pull from the lead owner column. He'll see, okay, Omar is the owner. Omar's email is 123@monday.com and send from that one, as opposed to the second lead, which is from Terra, which might have another email. I think these are the main features. We also want to go into permissions, who can create sequence, update sequence, duplicate, delete, enroll into a sequence, remove leads from sequence. Yeah, I think those are the major
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. Honestly, I tested out Sequences when it first came out, and I didn't know a lot of these features. So thank you so much for sharing all these new features with us. Thank you very much for joining and for teaching this to us. And I'm looking forward to see what comes next in Sequences.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and remember to subscribe to receive tips and tricks on how to use monday.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.